This week's battle for Atlantis is going to be a major test for the Louisville Cardinals.
You are Locked On Louisville, your daily podcast on the Louisville Cardinals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Card Nation, what's going on, everyone? Welcome into this Monday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Pence. This is my fifth year covering the University of Louisville, third year hosting this show, and I want to take the time to personally thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder, Locked On Louisville, free and available on all streaming services 5 days a week, your team every day. Now, today's episode of the show is brought to you by FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. All you have to do, visit FanDuel.com to get started. The Louisville Cardinals will be playing in the Battle for Atlantis tournament this week down in the Bahamas, and it's going to be a major test for Pat Kelsey's team. We're going to learn a lot about the Cardinals, 3 games against formidable competition. We'll preview the classic, preview the matchup against Indiana, the first game on the schedule for the Cardinals on Wednesday, and also explain what we need to see from Pat Kelsey's team this week. So a lot of good basketball talk on the show today. I've been looking forward to this event because let's face it, that game against Tennessee was miserable. So I'm hoping that this week is sort of Louisville bouncing back from that. And they have to an extent. Like after losing against Tennessee, they beat Bellarmine and they beat Winthrop. And you can only handle the schedule in front of you. But it's against mid-major competition, teams that Louisville is clearly more talented and better than. So now you're playing some pretty solid competition, and we'll go through who the teams in this tournament are here in just a second. But everyone wants to know, well, how good is this Louisville team? Like, did we overlook them? Did we, or not overlook them? Did we, speak too soon on this team? And what I mean by that, when they lost to Tennessee, even myself, I went on air before the season predicting that Louisville was going to go 21-10, that they were going to make the NCAA tournament and win a tournament game for the first time since 2017. And then when they lost by 22 to Tennessee, I'm sitting there thinking, well, did I speak too soon? And I kind of wrote it off as, well, 13 new players, brand new coach to the Power Four, early season. It's the second game of the year. But, I mean, there was a little bit of concern for me. And, yes, some of those same issues popped up against Bellarmine and Winthrop. Thankfully, the Cardinals, unlike in years past, were able to, get punched in the mouth and then brush themselves off and get back up. So, credit to them for handling business and coming into the Battle for Atlantis 3-1. But now all eyes are going to be on you in primetime situations. I mean, the Battle for Atlantis is outside of the Maui Invitational. I would probably say it's probably number 2. I feel like Maui's probably the top Thanksgiving week tournament, but Battle for Atlantis is right there. So Louisville has played in this Thanksgiving Classic twice before this, and I'm hoping that it ends up like this for Louisville because 2012 they went to the championship game, finished second place to Duke. That was the year that Louisville won it all. Yes, that championship did happen. 2016 was the second time they finished second. They blew a big lead to Baylor, but they still finished second. If you give me the option to say that, okay, if I gave you the opportunity to make sure that Louisville finished second in this classic, would you take it? 1,000%. Because I think people just want to see Louisville be respectable against the teams that they're possibly going to play. But if you to finish second, that means that you would have to beat Indiana and likely beat Gonzaga. Oh, man, that would be a huge, huge boost to this non-conference schedule and for this team. Let's look at the bracket. Like I said, Louisville will open up the Classic against Indiana. It's the first game on the schedule. They'll take on the winner or the loser between West Virginia and Gonzaga on Thanksgiving Day. And then on Friday, they'll either play in the the 7th and 8th place game, the 3rd or 4th, 5th and 6th, or the championship and 2nd place game. At the bottom of the bracket, there's Oklahoma, Providence, Davidson, and Arizona. And then outside of Arizona, I don't think that, any of the other 3 teams are as good as Indiana or Gonzaga, but they're still pretty respectable competition. Providence, I believe, gets Bryce Hopkins back this week, so that's a big boost for the Friars. So regardless of who you're going to play, it's not going to be seen as an easy game, and that's sort of a blessing. And I won't necessarily say a curse. I would probably say like an advantage and a disadvantage. Like the advantage is that you become battle tested, and it probably sets you up better for the ACC slate because you faced all these early season battles and you've grown up in January because you were forced to grow up in November and December, and you get the opportunity to pick up some signature marquee wins. But to play the other side of the coin, you would be at a disadvantage because you really aren't able to just go on a complete losing skid. Like, I don't think that Louisville can lose to Tennessee and then lose all 3 games in Atlantis and then lose to Ole Miss and then Duke and then Kentucky. Like, you have to start winning some of these games if you want to make the NCAA tournament. And that's sort of the give and take. Like, the pro is that you have more opportunities to pick up some signature wins and boost your resume, and you'll have a tougher strength of schedule. But the con is that what good does it do you to play tough teams if you're not going to beat any of them? So, and I'm not suggesting that they're going to lose every game against top competition. I'm just saying that, let's hope that this Tennessee game was a fluke. And I think that that's one thing that people are hoping. But let me go ahead and introduce this to you all. I don't know if you all have been paying attention. I'm one of those college basketball junkies to where, I was watching North Carolina and Hawaii tip off last Friday night at, Saturday morning at 12:30 a.m. and watch that full game. That's kind of the college basketball fan in me. So this week is huge for me. But I've paid a lot of attention to Tennessee because I wanted to see, well, how good are the Volunteers? Well, they're pretty dang good. They're 6-0 now. After they beat Louisville, they blew out 4 teams: Montana, Austin Peay, Virginia, and Baylor. They beat Virginia by 22. They beat Baylor by 15. So they've looked really solid. Chaz Lanier and Zakai Ziegler look like an All-American backcourt, and that's something that can't be understated how important that is. And then Rick Barnes is a good regular season coach. So let's hope that it was sort of Louisville not playing all that well and also Tennessee being really good. But you're going to go up against some good teams in this competition. So you're going to be put to the test. And it's easy to say that, it was a fluke when you lose to Tennessee, when you are able to, play mid-major competition. And again, I don't want that to sound bad, but beating Bellarmine and beating Winthrop by double digits doesn't really move the needle for me. What it does is it encourages me that you're winning the games that you're supposed to, because that is almost a prerequisite to making the tournament. Like, your non-conference slate is so challenging and so populated with good teams that you really can't afford to lose these games against mid-major competition. Like, you just have to win those games because that's going to put you in a position to get where you need to be in March in terms of net ranking and stuff like that. So, like I said, all eyes are going to be on you this weekend or this week. Sorry. And people want to know, well, how good is Pat Kelsey's team? We got to see him once and they got blown out to Tennessee. Are we going to see a team that, kind of, I won't say underperforms, but are we going to see a team that gets too stuck in the moment? Like, will this moment be too large for Louisville? Like, we haven't, gotten the opportunity outside of Tennessee to see Louisville play a team that is either as talented or more talented than they are. Indiana will be more talented. Gonzaga would be more talented. And then the other teams it depends on who you're playing. But you're going to have an opportunity. And this is also a major test for Pat Kelsey. Pat Kelsey, a first-time Power 4 head coach at a place like Louisville. Tennessee, I mean, he can't make the shots for the guys. But overall, he's going to be, I won't say judged, but people are going to be watching. Well, how is Pat Kelsey going to do in this tournament? We want to see how Louisville's going to do. And a lot of people will formulate opinions on the Cardinals this week. Whether that's fair or not, that's just the reality of the situation. And let's hope that by this time next week, we're talking about a Cardinals team that picked up at least one win in this tournament. A team that said, you know what? We can compete with these guys. And I think that on paper, they definitely can. It's just making sure you do that on the court. And so that's something that we have to focus on. Louisville will face a tough test right out of the gate. Indiana, 12 o'clock noon tip-off on Wednesday. This is a matchup that scares me considerably, and I'll explain why coming up on the next segment of Locked On Louisville. Cardinal fans, we've been having fun keeping it locked on right here at FanDuel all throughout the football season and the start of the basketball season. I've been tackling not only college football, but NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. I wish this was available to me, but new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. The FanDuel Sportsbook app is what I use. It gives me everything I need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when I get a hunch in the middle of the game, I can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, live same-game parlay, and so much more by visiting FanDuel.com. You can join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's on FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Cardinal fans, this is a big week for Louisville sports, the battle for Atlantis in basketball, the Governor's Cup in football. I want to take the time to thank you all for making us your first listen throughout the football season. Definitely does not go unappreciated nor unrecognized. Just a reminder, Locked On Louisville, free and available on all streaming services, 5 days a week, your team every day. Louisville will begin Battle for Atlantis play. They will actually tip off the event on Wednesday at noon Eastern time. They will play currently. This is being recorded on a Sunday night. So currently Indiana is ranked 16th in the country. I'm not sure how much they are going to go up, stay the same, or maybe even go down. You never know. But Indiana is 4-0 early on in this season. Looking at what they've done this year, they defeated SIU Edwardsville 80-61. It wasn't the most convincing victory, but it was the first game of the year. They did what they needed to do. They blew out Eastern Illinois. They got a 16-point victory over South Carolina, which I don't really know how good South Carolina is going to be. They lost to Indiana. They also lost to North Florida. Barely beat Mercer. Well, I say barely. They beat them by 12. But so we'll see how good South Carolina is going to be this season. But that is a good victory for Indiana. And then their final game, they defeated University of North Carolina, Greensboro, UNCG, 69-58. That is their most recent game. So they're 4-0. Indiana is a team with a ton of talent. They were one of the main transfer portal winners, getting guys like Omar Ballo, projected, I should say, to finish at the top of the Big Ten. I think second was the highest in a group of polls, right behind Purdue. One thing that does worry me a little bit is that they did play Tennessee in a exhibition game in late October, and they beat them 66-62. I believe that game was in Knoxville. So I try not to be an advocate for what I call the common opponent syndrome. Like Team A beat Team B, but Team B beat Team C and Team C beat Team A. You know, like that, the whole triangle. It's like, finding common opponents is difficult because everything can be so different from a game in, game out perspective. It's all about the matchups. But just goes to show you, I do think that Indiana is really, really talented. I think they have a good 8-9-man rotation. I think it's probably 8-man rotation. Really talented. They have a ton of size, and one of the main concerns with this team coming into the season was, well, how good are they going to be as a three-point shooting team? Are they going to be a team that can sort of mesh this talent together? And so far, they're 121st in three-point percentage coming into the week, shooting about 35.71%, which is honestly a pretty good number in the college game. So actually basketball in general, I think that if they continue, or if they continue to keep this streak of being over 35% from the 3-point line, they're going to be an extremely challenging team to beat overall. That's a good number. Louisville, for reference, is right around like the 29% mark. So I think that this is a matchup that worries me when it comes to Louisville. Now, the statistics might not necessarily prove it. Like right now, they're 293rd in offensive rebounding, 9 offensive rebounds a game, like 293rd. It's not good whatsoever. They played 4 games. They're averaging 9 a game. That's not good. But they're not a terrible rebounding team. Like, they're outside of the top 50 rebounding. They're a really good defensive rebounding team, 26 in the country with about 30.5 offensive rebounds per game. So that's something that, like, yeah, they're not maybe capitalizing on offensive rebounds, but I think some of that is because they're 17th in field goal percentage. Like, they're shooting on a nightly basis, 4 games into the season, almost 52%. Now, here's the thing about it is, all these statistics you have to kind of take with a grain of salt because the sample size is so small that you're kind of in a dangerous spot by putting too much emphasis on these numbers. So the numbers might not necessarily suggest that Indiana is a good offensive rebounding team, but let me read to you the height of the rotation. Like, okay, their last game against North Carolina Greensboro, 6'9", 6'9", 7 foot, 6'3", 6'3". So your backcourt is almost 6'3". You have some tall stretch forwards, and you have Omar Ballo in the middle at 7 foot. Coming off the bench, 6'7", 6'7", 6'5". So your team is extremely tall. That's something that Louisville is really struggling to limit offensive rebounds. Like, if Indiana is missing shots, which you're hoping that's to be the case, I kind of worry about, can Louisville rebound well against Indiana if they're struggling against smaller teams like Winthrop, Bellarmine, and Morehead State. So that's something to focus on here. Indiana's defense is pretty good as well, 34th scoring defense in the country, allowing about 61 points a game. Louisville is 43rd in that category. The main thing for me is that if you're going to have a chance to beat Indiana, you have to force turnovers, and Louisville has been doing that. Indiana is one of the worst teams in the Power 5 in turning the ball over early on. They're second worst in the Big Ten, 244th in the country, turning the ball over about 13 times a game. And that's worse than Louisville's numbers. So you look at, how they are, getting to where they need to be. They're playing very unselfishly, top 40 in the country as a team in assists per game. They're shooting the ball efficiently. A lot of their offense coming from around the rim, but when they are shooting it from the three-point line, they're being efficient there. It starts out with a former Louisville target, Mackenzie Mbako. He's leading the team with about 19 points a game on 59% shooting and 53% from the three-point line, 93% from the free throw line. Like, these are insane usage numbers. And then about 6.5 rebounds per game. So Mackenzie Mbako has been as good as advertised in year 2. I know year 1 was kind of up and down for him, but the 6'9" sophomore, former top 10 prospect, he looks fantastic. You've got some other players that kind of scare me. Omar Ballo, 12 points, 9.8 rebounds, 2.8 blocks. That's a top 20 shot blocker in the country. Miles Rice and Kanan Carlisle make up a really solid backcourt, veteran backcourt for the Hoosiers. Now, Rice is only technically a sophomore. He's been in college 3 seasons, but could be one of the better scorers in the Big Ten. You also have Malik Renew, who was pretty good last year for the Hoosiers. He's averaging 13.5 points per game. Not shooting the ball well from three-point land, but he's affecting the game in other ways. 6.5 rebounds on a nightly basis. So overall, this is a tall Indiana team that has a ton of size. They shoot the ball well. They're efficient taking it to the rim. They don't rebound offensively all that well from a numbers standpoint, but I think a lot of that has to do with the efficiency. And also, I mean, they're really good defensively and rebounding the ball on the defensive end. They have a premier shot blocker in the country. So this is a matchup that I feel like Louisville could struggle in. Like, I don't think, I don't feel good about this matchup. I think that if Louisville is going to win this game, they're going to have to shoot the ball well. They're going to have to limit offensive rebounds, and they're going to have to, do what they can to just keep Indiana off balance, keep moving the basketball. So overall, we'll see how Louisville does. I'm hoping that they're able to keep this game really close and get close. We'll see how how Mike Woodson's team does this season. Louisville almost beat Indiana last year. Probably should have beat Indiana last year. They almost beat Texas as well. So anything can happen. It's still early on in the season. So that's something that we will have to wait and see. But there are a couple things that I feel like we need to see from the Cardinals this week. A couple things, and I'll identify them coming up on the final segment of Locked On Louisville. Cardinal fans, when Louisville comes back from the Bahamas, I hope that you'll utilize GameTime, the official ticket marketplace of the Locked On Podcast Network, as your go-to for all of your KFC Yum Center ticket needs. That doesn't just have to, be limited to Louisville basketball. I'm talking comedy. I'm talking concert. Whatever events at the Yum Center, GameTime is the one-stop shop place to go. When you download the app, it is too easy. You have the all-in pricing feature that you can toggle on that will remove any surprise fees at checkout. You have the panoramic views from your seat. You have the game time picks, which makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. And your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. I could be that guy, and from a technicality standpoint, when we talk about what do we need to see from the Cardinals this week, I'll just go ahead and say 3 wins, but I won't be that guy. Hopefully that's the case. But the 3 things that I'm hoping to see from the Cardinals this week, I think it starts out with, I think the team has to be better on the boards. They have to, they're winning rebounding battles outside of the Tennessee game, but they're allowing so many offensive rebounds. They allowed 19 offensive rebounds to Winthrop. I don't care who you're playing. Giving up 19 offensive rebounds you can't spend that one way or the other. That's bad. That's very, very bad. I know some of the shots went hard off the back iron and it landed in a Winthrop guy's hands, and sometimes that's just the way the ball bounces, no pun intended. But 19 offensive rebounds is much more than just circumstantial evidence. So Louisville is going to play larger front courts this week. They're going to play more physical teams. I want to see the Cardinals just get better and better. Like, you don't have to out-rebound teams by 20 every game, but show that it's not going to be a plaguing issue for the rest of the season. I think that is box number 1. Box number 2, Louisville's stars need to show up. The top scorers for Louisville need to step up in this tournament. And you're thinking, well, you're putting a lot of pressure on them, but you came to Louisville to be the go-to guy. So you need Kasean Pryor, you need Terrence Edwards. I'm looking at those 2 in particular. Like, Louisville needs them to be on their game. Like, you need Terrence Edwards getting going offensively. You need Kasean Pryor knocking down his shot. You need both of them to limit the uncharacteristic turnovers, be smart with the basketball, but just take smart shots. It seems like at times, especially in the Tennessee game, both of those guys sort of forced some shots that weren't great shot selection. I'm hoping that, you allow the game to slow down a little bit in these next 3 games, and you're able to find your rhythm. Both of these guys are talented enough to compete at this level. It's just a matter of finding your go-to in this offense. I felt like against Winthrop, this team was moving the ball the best that they have by far this season. It was a lot of passing and cutting. It was very little stand around the perimeter and have 5 guys just pass around and somebody jack up a prayer at the end of the shot clock. That definitely can happen. You have to be very much or you can't be that one-dimensional this week, because it won't be that great of a week if that's the case. So Kasean Pryor and Terrence Edwards, I feel like you need them to show up. Also would go as far as saying, like, you need Chucky Hepburn to be good. You need Rain Smith to be shooting the ball well. You just need the team to play well, but it starts up top. Like, you need your top players, so to speak, to be able to rise to the occasion and beat these teams in this classic, because it's not going to be an easy test. What is it? Well, literally, the name of this episode is that the battle for Atlantis will be a major test for the Louisville Cardinals. Like, it's pretty straightforward. The third thing I kind of went a little bit back and forth on, but I was thinking maybe defense off the ball, like defending screens, limiting turnovers. I think it kind of just goes back to just not being one-dimensional on offense. Like, I want to see the offense continue to grow. One thing is true, I feel like, in my opinion, is that Pat Kelsey's system isn't just one that you can pick up on the fly and, execute it to a perfection. Like, it's going to take a stretch of games to sort of get acclimated, especially when you have 13 new basketball players on this team. So, it doesn't shock me that it's not all together right now, but I would like to see this team just take some more strides in the right direction. So what does that look like? Well, first of all, no 5 out on the perimeter, passing the ball around and just letting the defense sit back and just wait for you to shoot the ball. One thing that it also does, you saw against Tennessee, it allows the opposing defenders to take some risks and go for the steals and create some turnovers. And I think that whoever is on the court, I think you need to have somebody down in the dunker spot. I think that one good thing about Louisville is that everyone on the court can pass the ball. So whether you're getting someone the ball down on the dunker spot and you're having someone crash the boards and drive and kick, if you're wanting to be a 3-point shooting team, that's fine, but you have to make it to where the help defense collapses on the ball handler to where you create that separation and give your shooter some time to have a good look at the basket. So I think a lot of motion towards the rim. I think that one thing that I am focusing on is, can Louisville penetrate better defenses and get to the rim? Because at this point, it's been a little bit challenging for Louisville to get into the lane. And we don't know of the status of Corin Johnson. I'm hoping he's going to play, because he's one of the main players I'm focusing on to sort of lead this charge. But Louisville has to create some penetration in the middle of the opposing defense and not just be a team that relies on making 3-pointers or just around the rim. So, but like I said, what do I want to see from the Cardinals? Well, 3 wins. So going to be a major test this week. And I'm hoping that we have a very positive tone when we break down the Indiana game and preview either the matchup against Gonzaga or West Virginia. But that is going to wrap up this Monday edition of the show. On the Tuesday episode, we will talk a little bit about football, why Louisville needs to do whatever they need to do to keep Isaac Brown and Duke Watson Cardinals, and much, much more. Everyone have a great start to your week. We'll see you right back here